Hello and welcome to the Spirit Spa, an online sanctuary dedicated to supporting you if you're in the early stages of recovery from a nervous breakdown. My name is Karen Packwood. I'm an author and a spiritual guide. Today's theme from the message is going to be how to cope with isolation. Before I do that, what I would like to do is to just show you my location for today. I've come to the healing tree, the tree that I refer to as the healing tree in this forest, which I refer to and talk about a lot in the video how to cope when you've reached rock bottom with exhaustion. But I'm just going to give you a brief recap today at the beginning of this video because it relates to what I'm going to say in terms of isolation later on in the video. So just to remind you, the tree of healing is a tree that is completely uprooted. Just like we are when we have our nervous breakdown. But you can also see that there is the beautiful trunk and the beautiful thriving leaves. That even though this tree has been completely uprooted, it is still managing to thrive. And the reason it's still managing to thrive is because it just has a few tiny roots here that are keeping it connected to the life force of the earth. And this is very much like us when we're in the early stages of recovery from a breakdown, that even though we are completely uprooted, we still have, roots within us that are connecting us to our life force, keeping us going towards finding our new life again. And how does this connect with isolation? Well, let's just begin by, thinking about what the definition of isolation is, and certainly in terms of a breakdown. There's no doubt that when you enter into a breakdown, it's one of the most loneliest, frightening and terrifying places that you can possibly be. And to begin with, this isolation, we kind of recognize this isolation as very much an inner isolation. Our journey at the very beginning with isolation is about our relationship with ourselves. We feel as if we have completely shattered. We feel as if we have completely broken. We feel like we don't recognize ourselves anymore. We don't know who we are. Who we feel right at the beginning when we're in that extremely fragile and vulnerable place is probably a kind of completely different person to the person that we were before we had the breakdown. Probably we were high achievers, we were probably perfectionists, we were probably doing extremely demanding jobs, we probably had like a very busy social life. We probably had lots and lots and lots going on in our lives, and suddenly we've come to a place where we are completely incapacitated. When we are in that place of complete incapacitation, it is the lonely, most frightening and most isolating place in the world. So initially I'm going to talk about our inner isolation. And to do this, I'm going to take us to a very beautiful, I feel it's a very beautiful place in this forest, which I came across by chance. I didn't make it, but you can see behind me that under the trunk of the healing tree, of the uprooted tree, you can see that somebody has created a den. And when I first found this, I was kind of really bowled over by the magical quality of it, and it was somewhere where I felt very naturally drawn to come and sit. So I'm going to take you in there now, especially now that the wind is whipping up around me. I'm going to take you into what I'm going to refer to today as the den of isolation. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about inner isolation. So let me just tread my way very carefully through the entrance so I don't go flying. And I'm going to take us into this den, which as soon as I come into it, feels like a very magical place. And you can see that even though it's quite a dark place, there's still a lot of lights there. And this is just I'm just saying that because I know that when we're really in the early stages of the breakdown, we feel as if we're just completely surrounded by darkness, both on the inside and all around us. It's almost as if we can't see anything but blackness. And so the first thing that I want to say to you is that when you're in that state of isolation, where it does feel so incredibly dark, even though you can't see it, please remember that there is light around you. and you know, it's kind of shining in, even though you can't see it. It's there. It's still coming to you, and I'm saying that to kind of reassure you, because I know it doesn't feel like it. It doesn't feel like any goodness or light or life is coming your way at all. So let's talk about the isolation, the inner isolation. When I first used to come to this forest, I was really connected with my isolation. I mean, I was completely broken by the sense of isolation that I felt. I felt so lonely. I had no idea how I was going to get myself out of the situation. I couldn't seem to find anybody that understood. I didn't have the energy to talk to people. Medical doctors were great for giving me kind of like suggesting antidepressants and so on, but there wasn't kind of any, there was understanding about physiologically what was happening, but not necessarily what was happening emotionally or psychologically, or spiritually actually, for that matter. So I would cry. I mean, I would spend a lot of time in this forest crying. I felt so lonely and so frightened in my loneliness, and it was the trees, and it was this like little sacred den that I found that is what held me. You know, I've talked a lot about nature helping me in my early days. You know, it was coming to these like strong trees that really gave me a place to feel secure, actually. But I spent a lot of time really crying and being very frightened. They were tears of fear. But eventually, what I began to realise, and certainly in hindsight I can look back on it now and see what was going on, because actually what was going on then was that I was doing an awful lot of grieving. I was in a place of isolation. My breakdown had brought me to a place of isolation because I needed the time and space to heal past hurts, from relationships of the past, from betrayals that I had experienced, both betrayals from other people and betrayals of myself, where I hadn't lived my life truthfully in a real place of authenticity with myself. There was a lot of grief for relationships that had ended, for friends that I had lost. There was an awful lot of grief that I had not dealt with, and the isolation in the early days really brought me to the heart of that. And it wasn't easy, it was a difficult time, but I'm very glad that actually now I lived through it, and I went through it, and I allowed myself the time and space. I mean, actually I didn't allow myself, my breakdown kind of forced it on me, that I had to come to a place of stopping and allowing all the emotions that I had not allowed in my extremely busy life, I had not allowed myself to feel. So once again, the isolation is there for a positive reason. You know, all of these difficult emotions and situations are there for very positive reasons. So I encourage you to find your own safe den of isolation. It could be a place in your own home. It could be a place in a forest. It could be an area in your local area that feels safe to you, where you can allow the difficult feelings that you've been repressing to come up, to ask yourself, what is it that I'm grieving for? You know, is there anything from my former life in terms of my relationships with myself, with my own life, my own lifestyle? Is there anything there that I need to kind of, sift through and see if there's anything that I need to disconnect from or refine in any way? Are there past hurts that I've not allowed myself to feel? And what will happen is that you don't even really need to go searching for it. By just opening up to your isolation, it will come to you. And what you'll realize is that your isolation isn't harsh. It isn't cruel. It isn't intended to make you feel bad about yourself or your life. It's actually there to allow some cleansing to come forward, to release from past hurts. The isolation goes from feeling quite harsh and punitive to feeling quite gentle, tender, nourishing, and supportive. And that's what I got from the trees in the forest when I was going through my really difficult days. You know, I would arrive just feeling like I was in the harshest, most cruel, lonely place in the whole world, and somehow or other I would feel supported and heard, and you know, that nature would receive my feelings but also then give me some kind of support back. I wasn't able to talk to people. I wasn't in a place of being able to communicate any of this to people because it was, you know, a lot of it was very subconscious at the time. And it was only through walking and sitting with nature that I came to be able to just allow those difficult feelings to come up, to be released, for myself to be kind of cleansed, and then to come to a place of feeling kind of empty and neutral again, where I could then begin to kind of make decisions about how I wanted to live my life in terms of connections with other people, connections with myself. You know, my life has completely changed. I live my life at a completely different pace. I mix with completely different people. I do very different activities now. I was living such a busy life, you know, focusing on work so much. I had very little time for, you know, like pleasurable activities and hobbies, if you like. But now I'm very careful to make sure that my life is very balanced in a way that it wasn't balanced before. So I'm going to encourage you to find your own kind of sacred place of isolation where you can allow your isolation to come forward, to ask what is it, what feelings do I need to actually release, what am I kind of repressing, what aspects of the past do I need to heal for, do I need to grieve for, and then allow that to come forward. And you can do that by walking, you can do it by journaling, you can be doing it by, you know, just drawing sketches. You don't have to be an artist. You can just allow your heart to just draw for you and just see what comes forward as you draw. And sometimes you'll find that like wisdom and guidance comes forward for you as you begin to do those drawings. And so I'll do another video about this because there's so much to this as well. But that's just a kind of like a beginning video about isolation. If you have any questions on isolation, your own personal experiences that you would like me to answer, please leave a comment in the comments box below or email me at karenpackwood@gmail.com. I'm always very happy to answer your questions, and most of my videos are coming now as a result of questions that people have emailed for me, including this one. So please feel free to email me your questions. If you like the video, please you know, like it. If you'd like to subscribe to my channel to keep updated with my videos, please do, and please say hello in the comments if you become a new subscriber, because it's always lovely to know who you are. So thank you so much. My name is Karen Packwood. This is the Spirit Spa. It's a sanctuary dedicated to supporting you in the early stages of recovery from breakdown, and I'm sending you lots of love, and I'm wishing you a very peaceful, nourishing, safe, slow, gentle, loving and tender day. Take care. Lots of love.